Welcome back. Well, yes, the build-up to the governorship election in Anambra State continues. We're starting off with Mr. Festus Okoye, who is a national commissioner with INEC, joining us this morning. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today. Well, yes, we did hear the chairman just talking to the members of the National Assembly how ready the commission is. But there are some, maybe one or two areas that could be of equal importance. Yes, you've talked about 12 of the key functions out of 14. But when it has to do with security, perhaps let me talk about logistics first, because we know that several elections, INEC has always said, look, we are ready. But at the end of the day, logistics turns out to be an Achilles heel eventually. You're still sticking with the transport workers. That appears to be the best bet that you do have now. But some days ago, there were reports as to some ad hoc staff, members of staff of INEC, who, for fear of security, just thought, they just absconded, even though we heard, well, there was no resignation. So what can you tell us about that particular matter?
You know that the Independent National Electoral Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities for the conduct of this Anambra governorship election on the 19th day of January 2021. The implication is that this is an off-season election, and all of us were aware that this election was going to come. Now, based on that, the Independent National Electoral Commission also started putting its acts together. Now, based on our own processes and procedures, and also based on our own calculations and the number of new polling units we created, we made a determination that for ad hoc staff requirements, we need at least a total of 25,009 ad hoc staff. This will be made up of young men and women doing their national youth service who are going to act as presiding officers. And as you know, we have a total of 5,720 polling units in Anambra State. So we need these polling units to be manned by National Youth Service Corps members. Now, we also have assistant presiding officers 1, 2, and 3, and we harvest them from students of federal tertiary institutions. So there are basically 3 levels to the ad hoc staff recruitment process. 1, we recruit them through our INEC press. They apply through our portal, and then we process them through that particular portal. Then thereafter, those who have applied, we invite them to a training program. When we are done with the training, then thereafter we should issue them with letters of engagement. Now, during the training, what we normally do is that if we need 25,000 ad hoc staff, we may end up training 27,000 because we need to have some reserves, or what we call redundancies, in case somebody drops off on account of sickness or on account of other exigencies or a day before the election. Then after the training, we pay them their training allowance. And then thereafter, we issue them with letters of engagement, setting out their entitlements, setting out their rights, setting out their duties, and also setting out their own obligations to the commission and the commission's obligation to them. So after we issue them with the letters of engagement, then on Friday before the election day, we move them to the registration area centers. We have what we call super racks and ordinary racks, from where we deploy them on the first light. Now, any ad hoc staff that does not report to these registration area centers by 4 p.m. on Friday, we take it that the person is not interested in serving as an ad hoc staff. Then we take from the redundancies or from the reserves and make up, because these reserves have already been trained. So we just concluded the training of ad hoc staff, which we started on the 22nd, and we concluded on the 24th. So the next stage is to issue them with letters of engagement as ad hoc staff. I am not too sure that somebody can disengage from something he or she has not been recruited. Yes, there are concerns about security. Yes, there are concerns from parents relating to the security of their wards. Yes, the commission recognizes the fact that there are security issues, security concerns around Anambra State and in the Federation. But I think that it will be disingenuous and not in the interest of the nation for people to deliberately demobilize our ad hoc staff that we are tending to, that we are about to recruit. Now, in Anambra State, we have the resident electoral commissioner who speaks for the independent national electoral commission at the state level.
What do you mean deliberately demobilize? Could you shed light on that?
Yes, because what I'm saying is that if you engage in deliberate misinformation aimed at creating fear, aimed at creating panic, aimed at making sure that parents panic, the implication of what you are trying to do is to also make sure that even those who are determined may likely back out at the end of the day. But as of today, no ad hoc staff that we have trained has backed out, and none has indicated an interest that because of the security concern, they are not going to participate. The situation we have is that there are so many young men and women who have finished their national youth service and who don't have something to do. And they use some of the stipend we pay them on election day and the stipend we pay for purposes of transportation and for purposes of training to maintain themselves. So these people are ready and willing, and some of them are still applying, and we are putting them on the reserve list in case somebody does not turn up on election day. But we are comfortable with where we are, and we are proceeding apace with this particular election.
On that same matter, because we had some members of political parties who raised concerns, and they thought that they have it on good authority that INEC may be, or in fact, they said INEC was recruiting ad hoc staff and some officers for the elections from Imo State, and they thought that they were coming to Anambra State to do a job, and that they were being given ID cards, and they were just apprehensive about that. So what is the situation? Where are those members who are you recruiting coming from?
You know, when the election is around the corner, you have fortune tellers out there in the field. We have people who see tomorrow, and you also have people who are just engaged in baseless propaganda. Every political party that is registered in Nigeria is aware of how we recruit our ad hoc staff. Now, we recruit our ad hoc staff based on set processes and procedure. The presiding officers are harvested from the rank of young men and women doing their national youth service. Most of them are now in camp. If the number that we have in camp in Anambra State is not sufficient, then we mobilize those who have just finished the national youth service, and they apply through our INEC press. For assistant presiding officers 1, 2, and 3, we harvest from students, especially final year students of federal tertiary institutions in the state. For our supervisory presiding officers, we harvest them from senior staff of federal government agencies, commissions, and parastatals in the state. And every political party knows this. We understand the propaganda around Imo State, around the Delta State, around the Enugu State. Ordinarily, we can harvest UCOR members from Imo, we can harvest from Delta, we can even harvest from Enugu, and there won't be any problem with that. If you look at the configuration of Anambra State, you will see that there are some local governments in Anambra that are closer to Imo State, closer to Delta State than Oka. But because of the exigencies of this particular situation, we are sticking with what we have in relation to Anambra, and we are harvesting our ad hoc staff from youth corps members serving in Anambra State.
So why are they raising these concerns? We thought that there's usually this consultative meeting between INEC and political parties. So weren't this kind of matters raised there?
Well, they didn't raise these matters at the consultative meeting. But even if they raise these particular matters, it is not within the purview, it's not within the contemplation of the law for political parties to begin to dictate to us how we are going to organize our processes and how we are going to organize our procedures. What is important, what is fundamental, is that the Independent National Electoral Commission gets its logistics requirements right, gets its mobilization right, deploys as at and when due, and deploys in a manner that breeds confidence in the electoral process. But political parties will not dictate to us how we are going to recruit ad hoc staff, from where we are going to recruit ad hoc staff, and so on and so forth. Because we are the umpire. We regulate the political parties. They do not regulate us. So, but we want to make sure that all our processes are transparent and that all our processes are clear, and that the Nigerian people follow us and understand what we are doing. And our assurance is that we are recruiting in a manner that can breed confidence in the electoral process. We are recruiting in a very transparent manner.
But if that were the case, that you want it to be as transparent as possible, but they will not dictate to you, you will do what you want to do, why then have that meeting? Because if they raise concerns as to, look, if people come from, because I think the applicant person was talking about Futo and certain persons like that, so it doesn't matter what they think, INEC will recruit from wherever, even including from Futo, if need be.
Well, the truth of the matter is that I have explained to you the process and procedures for our recruitment. We recruit from serving youth corps members in the state. And then if there's a shortfall, the people who apply through our INEC press, that is youth corps members who have just finished their national youth service, we recruit them. Then we recruit from students of federal tertiary institutions in the state. So anybody who is making reference to any recruitment going on in Federal University of Technology, Owerri, or going on in any other state, the person is on his or her own, because as far as I'm aware, we are not recruiting ad hoc staff from any institution or from any NYC camp outside Anambra State.
Concerns of the political parties, do you think it is valid? Do you think it is genuine? And as you said, given the peculiarity of Anambra State, because when asked specifically, the parties were like, look, the only thing that will give them confidence in the integrity of INEC is the recruitment of ad hoc staff. So in terms of conversations with the political parties, who are the players on the field where INEC is umpire, what kind of engagement and persuasion have you been able to give them about this?
Well, we have been very, very transparent, and we have been very, very consultative in our relationship with political parties.
What's of concern, Mr. Okoye? What's of concern? Just a second. What's of concern is the level of confidence they have expressed to you about their confidence in INEC.
Well, in our last consultative meeting with them, we had a very, very good engagement. We told them the number of new polling units we have created and the fact that these new polling units are going to come into force for the first time in Anambra State. We told them about our new voter accreditation model that will also be deployed to Anambra State. And we also told them that we are going to deploy, that we are going to also upload results of polling units into our INEC Result Being portal. And all of them were happy with what we have done. The major issue that they raised revolved around the issue of security in Anambra State. And we implored them that in their campaigns and in their rallies and in their utterances and so on, that they should be civil and not do anything that will also raise tension. So they didn't raise any issue relating to ad hoc staff recruitment. The only issue I'm aware that was raised relates to our materials, our non-sensitive materials, and where they are coming from. Now, as you are aware, our office in Oka was burnt on the 23rd day of May 2021. Now, we had to reconstruct our store, we had to reconstruct the main office, and we had to also reconstruct our pavilion. So the moment we finished this reconstruction, we used 12 trucks and moved these non-sensitive materials from our zonal stores to Oka And then from there, we have batched and distributed them to the 21 local government areas of Anambra State. So they were of the impression that we are going to deploy our non-sensitive materials from our zonal office in Owerri to the contiguous local governments in Anambra State. But since we completed our stores that were burnt, we simply moved all the non-sensitive materials from our zonal office store in Port Harcourt and from our zonal store in Owerri, and also from our main store in the headquarters here into Oka, and then from there we batch them in accordance with the registration areas and move them to all the local government areas. So that was the only concern they raised, and as far as we are concerned, that concern was obviated, and we made it public what we were doing.
Yeah, when speaking about some of these concerns, you said, yes, we have security concerns. And it's something that is known to everyone that is a major concern. And it was against that backdrop much earlier, that INEC had said, unless these issues are addressed, there may be no election in Anambra. And now, of course, there has been a level of confidence as far as INEC is concerned. So how do we pass this confidence INEC has to the people who are going to do the voting?
Well, from beginning, the Independent National Electoral Commission has made it very, very clear that it was going to proceed with this particular election. We also made it very clear to the Nigerian people that we are prepared and that we are ready for this election. And based on that, we have never looked back. We kept on implementing our timetable and schedule of activities. And as the chairman pointed out to the joint committee of the Senate and the House of Representatives yesterday, we have implemented 12 out of the 14 activities we have in our timetable and schedule of activities. Now, they also raised the issue of security concerns. And we did inform them that we are also concerned about the issue of security in Anambra State. But we also had representatives of the DSS, the Immigration, the Federal Road Safety Commission, and so on. And then we also we have had consultative meetings at a very high level with the leadership of the Nigerian Police Force, that is the lead agency in the election security, and also with the Commissioner of Police in Anambra State. And they have assured us that they have the capacity and are working assiduously to make sure that this election is conducted in a safe and secure environment. We have also reached out to the National Peace Committee, and they're going to be in Anambra for the purposes of signing a peace accord. And as you can see, the traditional rulers, the clergy, civil society groups and organizations, and key stakeholders in Anambra State have also been calling for peace. And we believe that with the level of mobilization that has been done in terms of the traditional institution and other stakeholders, that we are going to have a good election in Anambra State.
Well, that's certainly the hope of a lot of people, really, because the build-up has left a lot to be desired in terms of security. And I just wonder, I mean, we'll expand this conversation and bring up some other issues that were raised yesterday, but still on security quickly. So I imagine that this is a very peculiar one for INEC. I mean, you had in Edo and Ondo the previous year, and, the mix for Anambra is quite different. I mean, the different things that come to play in this particular election is peculiar, really. Talk about the threats, the insecurity, the build-up, the attacks on INEC's offices, and a lot of other things. So I wonder for you, has this been more costly for INEC setting up this election in terms of, having to replace these things, having to, do a lot of extra things? So in terms of cost, if you compare this with Edo and Ondo, just how expensive has this been for INEC?
Well, the situation is different, the trajectory is different, and we are conducting this particular election in very unusual circumstances. This is because we had to rebuild our office in Nnewi North and I think Idemili North, where our offices, local government offices, we are burnt. We had to replace over 326 generating sets that we mopped up from our local government offices and stored in the headquarters, thinking that the headquarters will be more secure. We also had to rebuild our stores where we normally store non-sensitive materials, getting it ready for this election. We had to also replace over 60% of the non-sensitive materials we already deployed to our worker office, getting ready for this election. We had to replace 6 utility vehicles that were also burnt. And also we had to almost rebuild our state office that was also burnt. So in terms of cost, it's been very, very costly, and we can't compare it to Ondo and the Edo state elections because we are in very unusual circumstances, and because we are in very unusual circumstances, we had to do things differently. Ordinarily, we can deploy election materials just from our zonal office in Owerri directly to Ihiala local government, and also Nnewi North and Nnewi South bordering Owerri. And we can also deploy from Delta State into the Onitsha area. Because of the peculiar circumstances of this election, we had to deploy directly from Oka to all these local governments. So in terms of cost, it's more costly than other elections. But we are hopeful and that when we get to Ekiti and Osun governorship elections, that things will come down much, much better, and that our elections will return to its normal trajectory.
So just how much is this costing INEC, this election?
I'm not a finance man. Unless I go back and ask, I may not really know. But I know that, for instance, in Edo and Ondo, we didn't need to rebuild 2 of our local government offices. We didn't need to replace utility vehicles. We didn't need to rebuild our almost state office and then the stores. And we didn't need to replace over 60% of non-sensitive materials that we already deployed. So I do not have the figure offered, but I can find out from the finance people.
Okay, I'll be expecting to hear in that regard. But let's come back to the, conduct of the election proper. We have 9 days to that election, a lot of anticipation. And one of the issues raised by the political parties we spoke to yesterday is this talk about the BVAC, the bimodal voter accreditation model that will be used for that election. So INEC is saying that no BVAC or no ZPAD use, no voting. And one of the parties actually said, well, they are worried, really. So what happens if, this is eventually implemented? Does that mean that if the ZPAD doesn't work, one even shared his fears that it might be circumvented or tampered with? Does that mean that the people in that area will be disenfranchised, especially if it's a stronghold of a particular party? So bringing all of that together, how is INEC approaching this?
The smart card reader has lasted for 2 electoral cycles. And the political parties seem to have found a way around the smart card reader. Because sometimes they engage people to go and engage in multiple voting. They just approach the presiding officer and then claim that the smart card reader cannot read the permanent voter's card, and then they are given an incident form, and then they fill and they go and vote. We are telling them that that era is over. What we now have is a more smarter device, a device that can that can be used to multitask, so to say. Now, when a voter gets to the polling unit and the voter's permanent card is checked against the voter's register, and both of them match, then the voter approaches one of the assistant presiding officers. Then the assistant presiding officer will check the fingerprint of the voter using the bimodal voter accreditation system. If the fingerprint fails, then the facials of the voter will be read. If the facial fails, then there's a QR code at the back of the permanent voter's card, which can call up all the data of the voter. If that one fails, the implication is that the person who has come to the polling unit is not a registered voter in that particular polling unit, or the person wants to engage in multiple voting, or that the person is engaged in identity theft, and we will not allow the person to vote. So we have a gadget, we have a technological solution that we believe is very, very robust. We used it during the Isoko South 1 state constituency election. While in previous election, the smart card reader authenticated the voters at the level of 37%. Using the BVAS, we achieved over 97%. So we are confident that we have a more robust technological solution that will come to play in Anambra State. And we are confident that the solution will perform very, very well.
All right, so we'll bounce your confidence of this multi-layer process with some political parties and find out if they are very well in the clear about some of these things when we return from this break. Do stay with us.
Thanks for staying with us. Just before we bring in those other guests, Mr. Okoye, a quick question. You talked about the PVCs. Have the voters received their PVCs in Anambra State?
After the cleanup of the new registrants, after we completed the continuous voters registration exercise, we had to clean up the register itself. And then after the cleaning up, we discovered a total of 62,698 multiple registrants. And then when we concluded the cleanup, the figure came down to 76,104 valid registrants. Now, there were also some people who did transfer and so on and so forth. So the total PVCs we have printed is 81,774. Those PVCs will be in Anambra State today. We have the email addresses of some of the registrants. We have their telephone numbers. We are going to contact them and ask them to come and collect their PVCs. And then, you know, we also devolve to the registration areas in Anambra State. And so we're also going to devolve the collection to the registration areas in Anambra State. So I want to assure the people of Anambra, especially the new registrants, that their PVCs will be in Anambra State today. And those who did transfer, their PVCs will also be there today. So the Resident Electoral Commissioner has been asked to use the most efficient and effective means to make sure that every registrant gets his or her PVC delivered before the election. So the PVCs will be in Anambra today. Well,
Mr. Okoye, you know, there are many who will be shocked that PVCs will be in Anambra today. How many days before the elections? And we know that in previous elections, INEC normally spend months educating people, asking people, persuading people to come pick up the PVCs. And now the PVCs are yet to be in the state. So this is, I mean, there will be huge challenges here. Or at the moment, it suggests, in fact, what is the collection? It means nobody has picked up any PVC for these elections?
No. I'm talking about the PVC of the new registrants. Only those who registered during this particular period. For the over 62,698 who engaged in double registration, what we did was that we removed the double registration they did. So those people still have their PVCs and they can still vote in their polling units where they previously registered. So what we removed are the double registrants. Now, those who are previously registered already have their PVCs and they have no concerns whatsoever. The only people that need to pick up their PVCs are the 76,104 new registrants and the additional people who did transfers or who had their PVCs defaced and needed replacement. So the total PVCs that are up for collection revolves around 81,774. And we know where the people are. We are going to send them bulk SMS. We are going to send email to them. And we are going to take these PVCs to the wards or the registration areas where they registered and then ask them to come and pick it up. We are going to advertise on television and on the radio asking them to come and pick up their PVCs. And it doesn't take much for somebody to walk in and pick up his or her PVC.
1,000 people affected now. So if we could just get to the nitty-gritty of this, because it's important to, I mean, educate people on what to expect. So, I mean, we're all on the same page here. How will the logistics work? Will they be collected even during weekends? If you say we'll get to the States today, wonder what time? Morning, afternoon, evening, then we'll be taken to those different areas, the local government and the grassroots. I wonder how long that will take as well. So what will the collection be like? What's the plan? Will they be able to collect it during weekends? And I'm just wondering, really, by INEC standards, is this normal? Is this late? Maybe is this even early? I don't know if you could just combine all of that.
Well, it's normal if you ask me, and also it's slightly unusual because when we begin the distribution, we have to discountenance some days. So we have advised the resident electoral commissioner to also make these cards available to the new registrants both on Saturday and on Sunday, that anybody who wants to pick this thing up, even on a Saturday, on Sunday, will be allowed to pick it up. The people know where they did their registration. As you know, this particular registration was only devolved to our state offices and our local government area offices. And then we devolved to the registration areas. So every person who registered knows the registration area or the ward where he or she registered. So we are going to engage in massive enlightenment for people to know that their cards are available and that they can come pick up these cards and then get ready for voting. And we really don't envisage any huge challenge relating to people picking up their voters' cards. If people spent a day or two trying to get themselves registered, of course they can spend 10 or 20 10 minutes or 5 minutes and pick up their PVCs. And so we encourage the people of Anambra to pick up their PVCs because their PVC is their power. It gives them that sovereign right to make their choice and that sovereign right to make a determination on who governs them. And so it's very, very powerful, and they should go pick up their PVCs.
All right, so we've got some gentlemen who will be joining us now to come in at this moment. Honorable Victor Ogene is the Director of Media, APC Campaign Organization. But eventually we'll also have Dr. Harris Chuma Odili, who is a DG ADC Governorship Campaign Organization. Both of them will be joining us from Oka. Well, good morning, Mr. Ogene. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, you've heard what Mr. Okoye has said extensively ever since he joined up. So are you, first, by the way, if you do have questions for him, just as we'll tell Mr. Chumodili as well, if you've got questions for INEC, you can also ask. So, but tell us, what is your impression about what INEC has said just now about preparations for the forthcoming Anambra governorship elections?
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, guys. And hello, Nigerians. Well, I hooked on and listened carefully to the exchange between you and the INEC National Commissioner. And the only area that I would have some concerns is about the voters.
Oh dear, we appear to have lost him, but don't worry. We're hoping this won't happen on election day in the state so that they can vote actively. But I suspect he was going to make comments about the voter registration, the access to some of those things. But we've heard Mr. Okoye trying to encourage people to come forward and pick up their elections. By the way, we'll try and get that connection sorted and come back to him. Yeah, Ayo, go ahead.
Well, let me take this back to Mr. Okoye. Well, so I don't know if you caught a glimpse of one of the issues that he's trying to raise there. You may want to respond to that. But there is concern about voter education, especially because of all of the issues that we have been dealing with. But before you respond, I understand that our guest Ogene is back. Please go ahead, Mr. Ogene.
Talking about the voters' card, but besides that, so far so good. We are waiting for D-Day, and we are ready for the elections.
Are you confident? It's the question.
About what?
About the level of preparedness that INEC has expressed.
Yes, nothing suggests that otherwise. We are very confident about their preparations. And like the INEC chairman pointed out, I think out of 14 items of to-do list, they've done 12, and that's a pass mark.
So regarding the voter card, which you said, I mean, that's the issue you had. You were about to make the point earlier before the connection failed on us. Can you just, you know, explain that further? When you say you have issues with the voter card, what exactly do you mean, so we can get INEC to respond if he hasn't already?
No, what I meant actually was if they had more time, because with the security fears hovering around the state, some people who are in the hinterlands might find it a little difficult coming out to their local government headquarters to collect same. But we still have time on our hands, like he explained, Saturday and Sunday inclusive. I'm sure that in 1 week time, before Thursday next week, they should have their voters card. So that's not really a problem.
But you said security fears. Just how real are these fears? I mean, yes, we report this time and again, but for you, you've been on the ground even way before now. Just how real are the fears for you, for the people? I mean, INEC will also, as I've spoken about, and I will get them to respond as well, but just for you and for your people, just how real are these fears? Okay, we'll work on that. Again, as Chamberlain said, we don't look forward to having that on election day because there'll be a lot of...
I don't know what happened with the ZPAD or
Hopefully.
BVAS.
Well, Mr. Okoye, we seem to be having challenges with connection
How would the
from
ZPAD work
Anambra.
like this?
Are you worried about this as well? I wonder.
No, 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 I'm not worried. But let me just explain, because I listened to him. We are deploying the collection not only to the local government areas, but to the registration areas or to the wards. So the distribution will be very, very close to those who register for this particular election. On the issue of connection on election day, Anambra is a highly connected place, and the network is very good in Anambra. And as you know, immediately after we finish accreditation, after voting, sorting and counting of the votes at the polling unit, we are going to also use the BVAS for purposes of uploading polling unit results into our INEC result VM portal. So the moment it is locked up inside the BVAS, the moment you get a small network, it will just transmit the data directly to the portal. So we don't have concerns, we don't have issues around that. I supervised the election in Guaram Federal Constituency of Jigawa State, and we didn't have any serious concern relating to the uploading of polling unit results. I also supervised the Magama Rijau Federal Constituency election in Niger State, and we didn't have any challenge. And I also supervised the Cross River North senatorial election, and we didn't have any challenge uploading the polling unit results. And we are not going to have challenge in relation to Anambra State, because Anambra State has a better configuration than some of these places I've just mentioned.
And, you know, this brings an issue that has been brewing for a while. Well, the Senate seems to have backtracked on that, and that's the electronic transmission or uploading, as you said. So that perhaps explains why INEC has said, well, we are able to do this. This is something that is not a big deal. So I just wonder if it's something that INEC has been doing, uploading, even without the law being changed, as there's been a lot of clamor for it. Just what is, then how important really is this, whether or not it is a thing in law, if INEC is already uploading electronically, as it were?
As a lawyer, I understand some of these things differently, slightly more complicated than that. Yes, we upload polling unit results into our result viewing portal for public viewing, for purposes of building the confidence of our people, and also for purposes of accountability. But if you look at the law itself, if you take a very close look at Section 63 of the Electoral Act, you will see, and the other corresponding sections, you will see that our elections revolves around a step-by-step approach. The moment elections are over at a polling unit, the votes are counted, the scores of the candidates are entered into Form EC8A, and then the presiding officer will sign Form EC8A and also stamp it. The polling agents, if they're available, also countersign. And then a copy each is given to the polling agents or the party agents and the security agencies who are available. Now, that result moves from the polling unit to the registration area collation center or ward collation center, where the collation officer also collates the result into Form EC8B, and then stamps, signs, and then the polling agents will also do the same, and copies given to them. Now, when it leaves there to the local governments, if it's a state assembly election, it goes to the state assembly collation center where the results are declared and the winner announced. Now, these things are manual as provided in the law. They are not electronic based. And so you cannot use these results we are uploading for the purposes of making a declaration and also for purposes of making a return. But if the law is changed and this manual process is adjusted or removed or made a duality, then these results that we're uploading can also be used for the purposes of declaration and for purposes of return. But as of today, the results we are uploading cannot be used if there are legal challenges in court, because what the law as of today recognizes are the manually collated and manually declared results and the manual returns that are made. And so that's what we are saying. If the law is amended and some of these impediments in the Electoral Act 2010 as amended are removed, then we can do a harmonization and have a duality. And then if there's a problem between the manually collated result and the electronically transmitted result, then we will do a reconciliation and then one of them will prevail. That's the point we are making. So it's not as if we do not know what to do in relation to uploading of polling unit results and transmission of election results.
All right, I think we'll have the other gentleman back in now, Honorable Victor Ogene, as well as Dr. Harris Chuma Odeli. So, Honorable Ogene, are you done with making the point about the voter cards?
Yeah, I think the question I was asked had to do with security.
Okay.
And on that, I'd like to say that Anambra State was one of the states highly regarded for its good security network, where the governor, Chief Willie Obiano, purchased helicopters, drones, surveillance cameras, including dogs and horses. But surprisingly, at the nick of time, when these things were needed, they were nowhere to be found. The stock in the streets of Oka and elsewhere in Anambra State is where these dogs and horses eating as culinary delight. We didn't see them, and so we had to.
All right, we'll also sort that out. Okay, just a minute, Honorable Ogene. Let's get in Dr. Harris Chuma Odili. Good morning, and thank you for joining us as well on the program. I hope you can hear me at the moment. So first, could you tell us that there were some piece of information that made the rounds about whether or not you're still in the saddle as director of ADC campaign organization? Are you back there fully now? Dr. Harris, can you hear me?
However.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure he can. Okay. We've got both of them lined up, so that's why some of this interference coming through. But Honorable Ogene, please go ahead with your points, please. We got none of them up? Okay, well, gentlemen, there you go. But Mr. Okoye, now about the voting cards. So what happens, because, you know, it used to be a concern where people think if somebody, identity theft, using somebody else's PVC, now that you have this, the new registrant will be receiving their PVC soon when they arrive, OCA today, is it foolproof now that no matter what happens, nobody should worry about some group of persons hijacking or assuming they can take other people's PVCs and vote with it? Can that happen?
Those people have no place in the Anambra governorship election because the biometrics of the voters has been imputed into the BVAS itself. It's no longer on the permanent voters card. So while the permanent voters card still has the chip on it, the data of the voters is also inside the BVAS. So if we can't read their fingerprints, if we can't read their facials, we can't read their, the QR code embedded in their permanent voters card, you should simply not even approach the polling units on election day, because if you don't pass that authentication, you will not be allowed to vote, because we are confident and we are sure that the equipment we have is robust and that we have done multi-layered approach to the issue of voter authentication using the fingerprint, using the facial, and using the QR code. So if you are not, unless, you know, because the only way we cannot authenticate you is that if you leave your fingerprints at home and also you leave your face at home and then you come to the polling unit, of course, we cannot authenticate you if that happens. But so long as you come to the polling unit as a human being with fingerprints and with your face and with your permanent voter's card, we will authenticate you unless you are not the owner of the card or unless you are engaged in identity theft.
Oh dear. I'm just wondering, Mr. Okoye, is that even possible?
So leave your face out.
On a lighter note, Sanis.
Okay, well, I think we've got Mr. Harris back. It just keeps flipping. Dr. Harris, can you hear us now? Okay.
You know, Mr. Okoye said that the connection in Anambra is quite good.
Better configuration.
So this is an isolated case, really, and we'll keep trying to get them back. But just to be sure, Honorable again, Mr. Harris, can you hear us? Okay, well, Mr. Okoye, let me come back to you. I mean, I think we'll do a lot of voter education this morning, which is good, really. I think this is some blessing in disguise. So, in terms of this accreditation process, and I recall I raised that point, which one of the political parties raised about the possibility, what they saw, which you also referenced with the PVC being tampered with, circumvented. So what would INEC do? What is the plan if this ZPAD or BVAS doesn't work? Does that mean the election for that area is cancelled?
No, we are still adopting the same procedure. You know, this is an off-season election, and we have enough BVAS to go around the 5,720 polling units. What we have also done is to also look at the voting configuration of the various registration areas, where we have huge centers where people registered and where we have a large concentration of voters. We will deploy enough redundancies to those areas. And we have made a determination that for some big local governments, we are going to deploy at least 3 to 5 redundancies or reserves to each registration area. Now, if you look at the voters register, which we gave to the political parties, there are some polling units that have between 1 and 49 registered voters. This is because these polling units have been created, but they have not been populated, and we didn't want to do a huge disruption in relation to some of these things. So in relation to those areas, small registration areas, we will just put one or two reserves. Now, if there's a challenge with the BVAS, we have enough technical assistance in each of the registration areas to deal with it. If they are unable to deal with it, we replace it. But if around 12 noon we have not replaced it, we will suspend the election in that particular area and then do it the following day. But we are confident that we have enough reserves in Anambra State to obviate any possible challenge with the BVAS.
So, I mean, with these upgrades, this extra layers, trying to make the election much more credible, transparent, and smooth. In fact, INEC has been credited to have said that this will be embarrassingly transparent. In terms of getting election results, okay.
You will have results for Mr. Harris?
Mr. Okoye, please hold on. Let's get back to Mr. Harris. I understand that he's back. Just to be sure, are you back?
Oh.
Thank you for your patience. I'm back.
Oh, you're back like you never left.
We hope the voters will be patient on that day too,
Hopefully. But, Chamberlain was asking about certain reports making the rounds about you, resigning from politics or from ADC campaign. What exactly happened, and what is your, where are you now?
Well, I am where I have been. I am where I am. And, as a journalist,
well, it's shaping up to be a beautiful day nonetheless. So, as a journalist, we'll get you to land on that, hopefully, if the connection comes back. Mr. Okoye, we're back with you. So I was asking, in terms of, getting result of this election. I mean, we've seen the upgrades that INEC has done, and has costed, it's been a lot of money for INEC to ensure these things are done. Just how long after voting should we be expecting results?
Well, we have around 3 local governments in Anambra State that are riverine. And we have around, I think, 138 or 130 of the polling units that are in riverine areas. So we are making arrangements with the Marine Police to deploy marine boats to some of those areas to assist the Commission with the retrieval of results. Anambra is not that big. The only thing is that it has a huge concentration of population. But in terms of landmass, it's not that big. So we are confident and we are hopeful that the election will go on smoothly and that we are going to have the results of the election early enough. So we don't envisage any huge challenge.
Mr. Okoye, just one last one. How important is the Anambra elections to INEC?
Well, the Anambra election is important to the Commission, and every election is important to the Commission. Now, you see, sometimes a state assembly election may be more contentious, may be more problematic, and may be more challenging to the Commission than even a governorship election. But in terms of the Anambra election, we are holding this election in very peculiar circumstances, accentuated by insecurity and also some other challenges. And we are hopeful that all the critical stakeholders will wade in and intervene to make sure that we have a very peaceful election, that voters go to the polling units without anything unwholesome happening to them, and that all our staff that are going to be engaged for the conduct of this election perform in a very secure and safe environment. So this election is important to the Commission, it's important to the people of Anambra State, and it's also important to the Nigerian people because we want our democracy to continue to grow, and we also want democracy to be sustained in this country. So it's hugely important.
All right, then, Mr. Festus Okoye, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
I appreciate this opportunity.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, yeah, we're going to try again with Dr. Chuma Harris Odili. He is the Director of Campaign for the ADC in Anambra State. Dr. Harris, you are making a point as to your position. You're there, you never left?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, what was that talk about, whether or not you were no longer at the position? You're there now, aren't you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was my short break was actually based on the security situation we found ourselves in Anambra State. So at that point, I need to play safe, and I think things are improving now. So I'm back to the trenches, life first.
Well, but that has huge implications, because if you, as Director General for the party's governorship campaign organization, took a break because of security challenges, that means the voters perhaps may even decide not to bother coming out to vote, don't you think?
Well, at that point, it was the panic was much, and one needed to be very careful. But things are getting there's a lot of improvement now. The very week I resigned was the week we had a lot of deaths, more than 15 people shot dead and all that. So, and we don't really know where this is coming from. We're there after politicians, we're there after journalists, so much speculations, My journalist colleagues were also, and this hide and seek stuff. So life first, but things are generally improving now, and the voters are regaining confidence in the system.
Okay, so
it's gonna work.
What information were you able to glean from what transpired as to who the masterminds were, from what has been said, either from police authorities?
Well, I don't think there's been a comprehensive story on that, or who the masterminds were, because a lot of accusing fingers, some are pointing at the Biafran agitators, others pointing at DSS and all that. So we've not really come to a meeting point that would say, okay, this is actually where this thing is coming from. But for me, this whole thing is actually, my personal opinion, this whole thing is actually orchestrated to disrupt the system, disrupt the forthcoming election. And I wouldn't know where it's coming from.
So would you say you're satisfied with the preparations by INEC, security agencies so far ahead of the elections?
Well, as we speak, I'm in Anambra, I'm on ground, and I can see the security agencies, their presence is increasing in Anambra State as we speak. And the INEC, I don't know how prepared they are. I hope they will not come last minute to tell us that blah, 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 the usual English now, that we're going to postpone this. So I urge INEC to be firm and to ensure that they work with law enforcement agencies to pull through. Most especially their staff who are going to be in the field, who are going to be out there. The security of life is very important, more important than the properties, both non-sensitive and sensitive he was talking about. We're talking about lives of people who are going to work out there. I know these days, this issue of shutdown, it sends, panic to the spines, and people tend to, avoid, going out and all that. So a lot of campaign need to be run to restore confidence in our people that they should come out and be part of the process of electing.
Did your party attend the consultative committee meeting with INEC? Did you get a sense that they were going to perhaps shift the elections, as you alluded to just now?
Come again, Chairman.
Did your party attend the consultative meeting with INEC? And if you did you get any sense that they were going to shift the elections, as you suggested?
Well, no, we didn't get. But if what is going by what is going on now, and the presence of the law enforcement agencies on the streets everywhere in Anambra, I think everything will go well. And the INEC has done a good job in trying to make sure that the voters have access. I mean, the political parties have access, access to information as regards to this forthcoming election. But looking at dissecting what the man on the TV said today, it sounds a little bit jittery. It sounds a little bit jittery.
Which man will that be?
That he's ready.
Which man?
I was off and on.
Yeah, we had two of them. We had the INEC, and then we had the APC representative, who was still on anyway.
The APC man.
He was jittery? What do you mean he was jittery?
It sounds a bit jittery. Because the confidence, as a political party going into a major election, he was busy talking about horses, talking about helicopters and all that. Those are irrelevant things. Is it jittery? I don't know. Is he afraid of ABGA? I don't know. He should be afraid of ADC. Now, why is he afraid of ABGA? Why is he not afraid of ADC?
Okay, let's ask him directly. I think we'll have him back on the line. Honorable Ogene, are you there? So could you answer directly? Are you afraid? Honorable again, could you unmute yourself? You're mute. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yes, I was talking about, I was asked a question on security. I don't know what Harris is talking about.
Okay.
How can we be G3? APC is the party to beat in this election, which is why every other political party is talking about our candidate, Senator Andy Uba. The insecurity situation, have anybody thought about the fact that since the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, threatened a state of emergency if the situation does not get under control, since then we have not had any issue of drive-by shooting. That should tell you, the governor had repeatedly said that this is politically motivated. How come when his seat was threatened, all of a sudden, security was restored in the state, and we can now go about doing our campaign? If there's AATC is running this election, I don't know who their candidate is, and if they're, part of the election. So APC is not G3, we are the party to beat.
Are you accusing the ruling party in the state of fueling those security challenges?
I'm not accusing them directly, but the conjectures, if talks of state of emergency came about and suddenly, all of a sudden,
Okay, well, yes, I lost him there, so just trying to find out. But Dr. Harris, you heard him clearly there. Says he doesn't even know who your candidate is. How can the ADC accuse APC of being afraid? Dr. Harris?
Yeah, Chamberlain.
He says he doesn't even know who your candidate is. So how can you accuse him of the APC of being afraid of the ADC?
As a matter of fact, Alpha Mogene is not on ground in Anambra State. He's relatively unknown, and even in the political circle, he just came in as a Johnny just come. For him to say he does not know who Akachukwu is, I think that's the height of insensitivity on his own side. The thing is that Alpha Morgan and the party he represents, they are afraid of the ruling party. And I was asking, why are they not afraid of NDC? Akachukwu was a very strong contender in ABGA before we were disqualified. We left ABGA for African Democratic Congress. And we after the primaries, we won the ticket of ADC, and we've been all over the place. Akachukwu is ex-presidential aide. He's a presidential aide, even now as a convoy, personal convoy to ex-president Goodluck Jonathan. So if he says he does not know who Akachukwu is, and he's from Anambra State, we should check his DNA.
Do you realistically think that your candidate has a chance or will win the elections?
You see, this is the chance here. The chance we have here is that this forthcoming election is Akachukwu against the so-called big parties. ADC against the so-called big parties. And our chance is very clear here. You know, we are the grassroots. We have the structure, you know, in the 326 wards in Anambra State. And we have this thing going for us, the grassroots connect that we have. And our campaign has been on Umunna ideology, Umunna revolution. We are not those guys who are on the road doing road shows, you know, and all that. We have penetrated every Umunna kindred.
All right, does the ADC?
People in Anambra State who are
all right, just hang on a minute. Does the ADC have any local government chairman or local council chairman elected under their party?
Yes. I mean, in government?
Yes, in Anambra State at the moment.
Anambra State has not conducted, Anambra State government has not conducted local government election for donkey years now.
So do you have members in the State House of Assembly?
That's what I'm saying. We don't. This is our first major outing.
So what structures are you referring to then?
We have existing structures. We have existing structures. The Umunna system that you know that works in Igbo land, we have it covered. And we have it covered. You know, we have it covered beyond the local government. We went deep in. Right. We've done a lot of research on this, a study, in a painstaking study that give us the right data to work with. And I'm telling you that
Dr. Harris,
political parties,
just on a final note,
know that these other political parties, APC, APGA, PDP, they have messed up the system and they cannot give them another chance.
Dr. Harris, we're closing now. Just on a final note.
All right, Dr. Chuma Harris, thank you very much indeed for your time. I wish you all the best for the elections.
Thank you for having me.